upon that idea because I see this a lot in different cultures. But the idea is that we should pick something, we should work hard, we should stick to it. There's a script of how to live. In Vietnam, it's pretty clear script. And that will be the structure. That will be the guide for a life that then becomes secure. But it might be based on a fear. Okay, so when we look deeper under why we would script our life to follow a path, it might be because we're afraid of not surviving. Okay, and when a culture has been through years of survival, it makes sense that they're going to be more conservative in the way that they assure survival, even when it's not really the issue anymore. Survival isn't a question, but sticking to the script is a method. So there's often conflicts between parents who say, we know what you should do and this is what you should follow, and younger people that are going, but I want to explore. I want to be changing as I go and figuring out. And that conflict can happen. So I always look to say, is it fear-based? You know, this is where scarcity and abundance and fear and confidence. And if it's fear-based, then we have to go, okay, but yes, there's a value in fear because it's telling us there's a danger. But we don't want to be afraid of something that actually isn't a danger, right? We don't want to be afraid when reality is that we can discover a lot of things and we will be okay.
But it's, thank you. My question here is, isn't it to some extent still a valid fear? Because, I mean, if we don't follow the path which is traditional in our cultures, of course we can figure out a new way. I mean, okay, even of course kind of sounds presumptuous. It is possible, but it takes much more time, much more effort, much more like resource, which again distracts the person from other important tasks in life which they could be otherwise doing. Well, I have some people I know my age who have a child already, and I mean, I don't want to devalue that. That's a very important task. And I myself realized that there is a possibility that I might never have it in my life. And in that case, there will be a huge amount of grieving. So the thing is that, isn't this a valid fear?
I think it's aligned with the values you have, okay? And so for someone that might be a fear because it keeps them from living the life that they would want. And for another person, it might be an invalid fear because they want to explore all the ways. You know, I think of artists or people that are discovering what to express is quite different than something that's more scripted, where people are sort of complying with expectations. Yeah, but I think you're absolutely right to say, well, if having a child is a priority, then absolutely I need to secure a life that allows me to raise that child in a way that is responsible. I think it's the greatest responsibility that we have in life. If we have a child, we are responsible. This is all of what we're talking about. For that period of time, we have the responsibility to be sure, to whatever degree we can, that child's needs are met, because they can't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, you mentioned values, that it all depends on the values. And, well, I mean, having a child is a very, I guess it's one of those biologically determined universal values. So almost everybody has this value. If we talk about other values and other paths, we can't have a system of values which which is idiosyncratic to us and unique to us. Like, the values need to be shared by some community. Like, it cannot exist within just one individual. So I guess that exploration is great if there is a chance to find such a community. For example, Hoi An seems to be a wonderful place with a lot of support. But if a person cannot find a community that shares their values, I feel like it's an extremely painful and maybe even unattainable task, to have a different path while being surrounded by people who don't share the values. And I mean, in this case, it seems to me that it kind of makes sense to, to shift perspective. Of course, it is also very painful, and I guess it might, jeopardize the whole sense of self. But if there is no other alternative, yeah, I mean, I'm just sharing my thoughts here.
I wanted to kind of share my story when it comes to sticking to the path or like finding yourself, because as what I've mentioned in the previous conversations, like I grew up born and raised in Asia, in the Philippines, where there's a really clear structure. I always call this one like societal bucket lists, checklists to check, and it's so clear. I mean, it's general. I have traveled, I have seen people, and it's the same. It's not just about us, but it's just so clear for us. I grew up in that sense, but also kind of like rooting into my inner GPS, because I was given too much freedom, and I built that strong self-trust, let's just say, or having that trusting that there's someone above us. So with regards to what you're talking about, not being in a community that aligns to your value, feels like, yes, not being able to relate, and you won't get enough support to go through whatever you're going through. I feel like I was really drowning so much because I was still in that same state. So it was painful. I was drowning and fighting for my own individuality. I was fighting for my, like, okay, this is what I value. But it took me like years to realize that, okay, I don't fit here anymore. So I have to be courageous enough to go out there in the world and find my way. And that took me to my journey of, let's say, discovering myself, individualizing, and got to a point where, I have all this sense of knowing, self-knowing, the awareness. Now, what's my value, and where does this value will take me to connect to the right people? There's always going to be right places, but the people who values the same. But in that sense that you were talking about, okay, the fear of stepping out from that structure, will it lose that sense of self? That sense of self that I had, that I was trying to prove from the wrong community, was actually a false sense of self. A self of myself, like an image that was built according to how my parents want me to be, or how that society wants me to be. But the sense of like the inner GPS was strong enough because of how I was molded, and I followed that. But it was painful to accept that, what I was presented was not the right feeling for myself. So I have to grieve. I have to lose that. But it also brought me to a space where I feel like I can relate to whatever you're talking about, like, having all this freedom, having these choices of how I can live the life that I want. Because for the people who still stick, I mean, there's no right or wrong on how you can live your life. But my friends, my colleagues who are still in that state, I feel like, they don't see life as a choice. They don't really have that enough agency to live the life that they want, because they're too afraid to let go of the structure that they were presented. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
I would really love for this conversation to go. It brought us to a very beautiful flow today. So I feel like there will be next sessions coming up, a fourth one. But any thoughts or insight that we can contribute before we will end this conversation we have today? Or
Well, I agree. There's a certain kind of flow, and that out of what we're sharing about our personal experiences, we're also being able to see kind of a roadmap or a way in which it fits into a kind of a schema of how these things work. And for me, there's a real it helps me to relax into my life more when I realize, okay, there is an order to this. There are these things that we discover along the way. There are continual questions about when does fear determine the choice I make, or when is it a risk I'm willing to take? There's all these points where we integrate the awareness that we have into the life that we have. And so I think it's a very rich and real conversation, and I deeply appreciate that each of you brings yourself and the story that is relevant to this conversation.
is there any takeaway or insights that I think it would be best if each of us could, add some insight or reflections or takeaway before we end this conversation?
I mean, it's been such an inspiring, exchange and conversation that we had today. And I take a lot with me, to be honest. It's so interesting to hear everyone's story, and so honest, in such a honest and organic way. That I definitely realize how much in common we have, how much we share this never-ending search of, whether it's adventures or whether it's the self-love. And it's good to know that, of course, we're not alone. And again, regardless, no matter how old you are, no matter where you're from or what your background is, we really like share the essence of life together. And as much as it's important to grow alone and nourish your soul and understand your values, we are really stronger together. So I'm happy to really being able to be myself and share all of this with you as well. And I've learned a lot, also more about myself. It's good to express and put a lot of topics to surface, because it's a give and take experience.
Okay, what's right and wrong? It's like cultivating that internal voice and not really suppressing it down because of like some expectations or standards that I have to meet just to feel good. But I don't know. But that's what I can say for today.
Yeah, well, to continue, about being, being surrounded by people who have lived longer than I greatly appreciate. I greatly appreciate my company and the fact that I can learn from everybody. This is very precious. Thank you. And the theme that I heard today from all of you, I believe, is about getting maybe not comfortable, but getting strong enough to withstand their uncertainty and welcoming that, rather than trying to restructure it into some sort of familiarity, some sort of order as soon as it appears, without actually letting yourself to be in this moment of uncertainty. So this is something I have yet to learn, because that makes me feel extremely uncomfortable. And this feeling of having strong emotions and not being able to understand what they're about, because developmentally I used to suppress my emotions, I guess, or rationalize. So I'm not very much used to actually being aware of them and experiencing them strongly. So that part is new. and being able to still be around people in this time rather than isolate myself. So that is another challenge. You know, learning to navigate it and not try to, you know, run away whenever that happens. This is also something to learn. So yeah, it has been very insightful. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Douglas.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, it's very enjoyable to put ideas into the space that we share and to recognize how often they are compatible and they bring us an understanding. And yeah, I do feel a particular honor, or you know, for me, it's a gift that you give me that allows me to share what it is I've learned. And I don't apologize for having lived long enough to share some of these things. And if they're of value, then that's exactly what I would hope. So, and I also take away from each of your experiences and the ways in which you're sharing where you are and what you're learning. It also teaches me about life, and so I hope we keep going and we can do it again.
Yes, in the next, yeah. So for this conversation, this is the ending. As much as we wanted to talk, we can talk as long as we want, but we have also like personal commitments to do. So I'm so happy and grateful for each one of us here. I know that there's still one more sessions to come because a lot of concepts came up from within this space, and it's beautiful. Yeah. All right.
Okay.
That's it. That's the ending for today.
Okay.
Yay!